Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, My PhD, My Prison History Diploma. My name is Kim and I did 10 years and 8 months in Florida Department of Corrections, and I've been out for over 15 years now. So today I wanted to make a video about the misconduct of the correctional officers within a women's facility. I witnessed a lot of things. I was approached many times, and I'm gonna dive deep into one particular situation that occurred in a prison in South Florida that I was located at, and I actually knew the people involved. And the reason why I'm making this video is because I was absolutely infuriated when I read online about the jail in Indiana, I believe it was, where a guard got paid $1,000 to allow male inmates to go into female inmates' area to sexually abuse them. So I'm gonna tell y'all what it looked like for me when I was incarcerated and what I witnessed during my incarceration as far as the abuse is concerned. So I'm gonna start off just real quick with me. I am one of those people that I know how to shut people down very quickly and very easily and don't give a second thought about it, nor am I easily intimidated when it comes to correctional officers approaching me with trinkets for sexual favors. It happened to me many times, and what I discovered, obviously, it was consistently no. I did not need any male correctional officers, nor did I feel a desire to sexually satisfy anybody. However, that did not stop any of the male COs approaching the subject with me. I would say I had a handful of male COs that did approach me with gifts, trinkets, whatever you want to call it, for sexual favor. I always said no, and I stuck to my guns on that. It was actually a bit surprising to me how many people would approach me in regards to sexual favors. It was insane. I never knew that would happen in the system. I do want to talk about this particular incident. Again, it was in a prison in the South. I was at this particular prison. The person, so I'm just gonna go into depth with this. So I was in a prison South, and I had a friend that I actually did time with in another prison, because they transfer you quite often when you have a long amount of time. That way you don't get comfortable, you don't get familiar with the staff, blah, blah, blah. And so they'll transfer you around. Now, with that being said, I got transferred to this prison South, and I had a friend that was the secretary. She was an inmate, she was in the system, but she was a secretary for the warehouse. And the person that was over the warehouse, they were not deemed a correctional officer, but they had the authority of a correctional officer. The male that was over the warehouse, oversaw the warehouse. So the girl, and I'll call her DC, DC did all the administrative work, and she was the warehouse manager's right-hand person. So they actually had a very close relationship. It was not sexual, it was not romantic, but you guys are gonna be absolutely surprised on how disgusting and pathetic this man was. So DC, after a couple weeks of working in this warehouse, number one, the gentleman was quite obese. That the male officer, I don't know what you would call him because he would wear free world clothes, but her boss was obese, not attractive, and just kind of pathetic and lazy. And sorry, but it's the truth. So what she would do, they formed a friendship, and you know, basically he would complain to her that, oh, no women want me, and blah, blah, blah. And they would stand outside behind the warehouse, and they would be able to see the rec field from the warehouse. And, you know, one day they were standing there, and DC asked her boss, hey, you know, what are you thinking about as we're looking at the rec field? And he said, you know, I'm fishing. And she's like, what? And he's like, I'm looking at the women that I would have sexual relations with. Of course, he didn't say it so eloquently, but DC was, you know, internalized that note. The next day they came into work and he actually had some vodka for DC. And he allowed her to drink the vodka. And then he had several small bottles of vodka. Now, vodka is one of the bigger beverages that were brought in by staff because it's clear, and it was one of the easier beverages to get in by staff. So he brought several, I guess you would call airplane bottles, in the next day. And he told DC, hey, you know, I find this one attractive, this one, and he started pointing women out on the field. And this is from DC to me. Also, there was a huge investigation when everything was said and done, but we'll get into that. So he would point at people on the rec field, and then DC, what she would do is she would bring that little airplane bottle of vodka out to the rec field, and she would approach the women that he found to be attractive. And she would be very discreet with it, and she would say, hey, you want to drink with me? And they would go have a couple drinks, and she's like, you can have the rest, but I want to let you know there's more where that came from. And, you know, of course, the girl would be enticed. Now, 90% of the time, DC was extremely intelligent woman, as a matter of fact. I have to give her mad props on that. She would actually tell, you know, the warehouse manager guy whether they had long time or short time. And of course, they would pick out the people with the long time because those were the ones that were more inclined to do sexual favors for vodka, an airplane bottle of vodka at that. And so she would tell these girls, hey, there's more where that came from, but this is what you have to do. And so then DC, they would, you know, drink. They would come up with a plan for the woman to meet the male warehouse guy, and they would engage in sexual activity for little airplane bottles of vodka. And this person, this guy, this warehouse guy, actually had more than, I would say, 6 victims. It was disgusting and it was pathetic. And me and DC were very close, so I knew pretty much everything that was going on in that warehouse, every person that put out, female, you know, I mean, sexual details. It was horrific. It was pretty bad. But here's the thing. I was an inmate, obviously. So I would only discuss this with DC because A, it was information that could hurt a lot of people. And B, my theory was if these girls that had life sentences or 20 years could get some sort of gift that they normally couldn't give, I wasn't going to get in the way of that. However, one day, DC and the gentleman were standing, I don't even want to call him a gentleman. The guy was standing outside, and he picked this one person that she's a little tough, a little rough around the edges. She was very aesthetically pleasing, but she was definitely somebody that didn't put up with anybody's crap. So DC lured her in, and they started having sexual favors for exchange of vodka. And then the person, the girl that this particular inmate, she basically told him, I'm going to be your only girl, and this is how it's going to go down. And if it doesn't go down the way that I want it to go down, your head is mine. So basically she had him, you know, in a position of submission, I guess you would say. And so he would cut off all the other women, and he was only seeing this specific person, this specific inmate. And it, of course, started off with vodka. And then she's like, yo, you need to bring me drugs. And that's where the issue came into play. He was unwilling to bring drugs. He drew the line at drugs. But he would continue to bring her vodka. Well, then she figured out who was selling hard drugs in that particular prison, and she told the warehouse guy, listen, give me cash. You're not bringing the drugs in, you bring me cash, let me pay for my drugs. And so he started bringing her cash so she could start buying, I believe it was cocaine, for her to use during her incarceration. And this girl probably had about 15 years. And so, you know, everything was going well, I guess you would say. She was getting satisfied, he was getting satisfied, but her drug habit grew bigger and bigger every day. And she would ask for more and more money. And he stopped complying financially. And she ended up owing quite a bit of people at that particular prison quite a bit of money. So I'm sure you guys can guess what happened from there. She ended up going to the inspector of that particular prison and tell him everything. Everybody that sold drugs and the warehouse guy, all the way down to DC setting it up. She just went ahead and mulled over everybody because she couldn't get access to the drugs that she wanted because she built up such a heavy habit. What ended up happening is they emergency shipped the person that told on them. They got her out of there because a lot of people actually wanted to hurt her. You had inmates that wanted to hurt her, that sold her drugs that she owed money to. You had DC that was extremely angry, and you had the warehouse guy get escorted off the compound in cuffs. And they told him basically goodbye, and you're gonna be arrested and charged with this crime. But they emergency shipped her off the compound, and I would say from that incident, that the woman telling on everybody, I would say about 18 people went to solitary confinement for drug dealing, harassment, I mean, just a various amount of things. DC went to solitary confinement under investigation for quite a bit of months. And it was just a huge scandal. Everybody knew what was going on because that particular woman that he was bringing the money to for sexual favors was actually telling everybody what was going on because she wanted to be the big shot. So yeah, that did happen. It was disgusting. It was pathetic. And he used his position to lure women. He is a sexual predator. And the girl that was his secretary, I really hope that she clicks on this video one day. She knows who I'm talking about very specifically, and she knows where I'm talking about, and she knows her part in it. Now, here's the thing. You know, I often think about, you know, is DC part of the problem? Yeah, DC was part of the problem. However, keep in mind that if it wouldn't have come from him to her, there wouldn't have been a problem. So she was just complying with her boss, getting favors, and then bringing exactly what he wanted. That is predatory behavior all day long. Now, at least with me, when the male officers would approach me with trinkets, when I said no, and I actually turned the crush or whatever they wanted from me into a friendship, most of these guys ended up to be pretty cool people. You know, it's like, in my mind, I'm like, well, you know, you can't be mad at them for trying, but, you know, that wasn't my job during my incarceration. I wasn't there to sleep with any of the male officers. I was there to do time. Now, as y'all know, I had an officer bringing me marijuana into the system. That was an absolute business relationship. She got cash from a Western Union and she would bring me the weed, and that was the only way that I was getting trinkets in there because I did not want to ever owe anybody any sexual favors. That, I always had morals and standards in that place when it came to my body. And word traveled fast that Kim said no. However, I do want the public to know, those that have never been incarcerated, this is something that women in incarceration have to battle often. It is not silent. It is not on the down low. Everybody knows what everybody does. I'm telling you some good stuff. The system knows, the inmates know, the fellow staff knows. It is just swept under the carpet because people in incarceration aren't looked at to be honest. They're liars, whatever, you know, whatever the staff has to say to justify that type of behavior. So I wanted to make this quick video because, again, I am so extremely disturbed. And you know what? This needs to be brought to light. And, you know, I love all my hope healers and hope dealers. And this is not a woe is me. This is not, you know, this is just bringing facts to the table on what goes on in the system. And that, my friend, is the facts. So with that being said, to all my hope healers and hope dealers, I certainly hope this clarifies for you what it looks like for a female to be inside the system and what it looks like for a male correctional officer when they come on to a female inmate. Like I said, it happened often. I knew how to turn that around into a friendship and a polite no. Not many people had that skill. A lot of people were very weak. A lot of people thought they were big dogging it because they had these dumb little trinkets. My philosophy was my body is mine and it's my temple and nobody gets it without love. So with that being said, to all my hope healers and hope dealers, thank you so much for being here. I love all of y'all and I hope you're having an absolutely beautiful day and more coming out soon. I love y'all. Thank you so much.